Welcome to the PreVetted Podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary talent, changing the world. On today's episode, we are joined by Dario de Santis. He's an innovator who has spent more than 20 years turning ideas into practical collaboration and AI products. Dario is worth listening to because he combines product vision and hands-on technical leadership. So you should listen to what Dario has to say. Hello, Dario. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you, Federico, and thanks for having me. And hello, everyone who is listening or watching the podcast.
Yes, we have people watching on the videos, and then we have people listening on the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Great pleasure.
So I understand you have a lot of experience with corporate environments. You've been working many years at Cisco, and recently you launched your own startup called Twilling. So let's talk a little bit about Twilling. What gave you the idea to create Twilling in the first place?
Oh, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Well, I've been in product for many years, and the more I went up in the hierarchy, I became more important within organizations, the more people wanted a piece of you for anything, You kind of become a central role and your calendar explodes. You're always in back-to-back meetings and people pinging you and asking you for all sorts of things on email or through instant messaging. At a certain point, things starting falling through the cracks. For example, let's say an account manager for a really large bank needed me to jump on a call for giving a demo of a product for this really important account. And they would send me a message on Teams. And if I didn't read that message within 10 minutes, it would bubble down because other unread channels would bubble up. And so a lot of things started falling through the cracks. And the solution for all of that was always scheduling a meeting. Let's say this account manager couldn't really get a hold of me. So what they did, they just opened Outlook, scheduled the meeting for the following day at lunchtime. And now there you have it. Now I have to move things around to make room for this urgent meeting with, an account team for a large customer. So this was my daily routine. And I asked myself, is this the right way to collaborate? Because, at a certain point, I became a central role more and more. But what I was doing was coordinating availabilities and communicating back and forth with people to find time for meeting a week from today. Is that a good use of my time? And so one day we said, look, if we had the magic wand, what would be the ideal experience, Federico? Well, I think about talking to you, and then magically we get connected at everyone's earliest convenience with no coordination needed, like bumping into each other on the street right at the right moment. So we built an AI substantially that does that. And this is, but that's the inception. The reason why we started is because it was impossible to talk to people, in large organizations, especially key roles, are super busy. They are overbooked. It's incredible, Federico. Talking to large enterprise customers, some of them have 4, 5, I've seen up to 7 meetings for each single slot. When companies are really big, I'm talking about 100,000 employees or above. That is unmanageable. Meetings have spiraled out of control. A lot of companies out there are investing in AI to play calendar Tetris, move things around automatically. But think about this. If a calendar is overbooked, or you have multiple bookings for each single slot, what can you really resolve? What can you move? If anything, if there's a conflict, it goes and spreads it on free slots and push people to work overtime on the things that matter. So we took a different stand, and we said the only solution to too many meetings is less meetings. And so we designed a solution that allows workers to avoid meetings.
Right. I mean, I think that the AI optimization and find like what you were saying, playing Tetris is the optimization in the wrong dimension or the wrong direction, right? Because you're optimizing on we want this person to have a schedule fully booked, right? And that's not necessarily increased productivity. It's it could be the other way around actually.
Absolutely. And look, very large companies are already rethinking the concept of productivity because they realize that. And they say, well, more meetings, it doesn't mean you're being more productive. Well, if you think about it, you are incurring more coordination cost.
Right.
And just one mind-blowing thing, Federico, that I've always thought is take your work day. You have 8 slots of an hour or 16 slots of half an hour if you want to reason in a smaller resolution. If you fill them up, there's a limited amount of things you can do. And so if you want to increase productivity, you have to change the playground for it. Because if you play with calendar, you always have an asymptote. You have a limit to what you can achieve because of this 16 slots that you can exploit every day. And so we said, how can you increase the resolution and carve out every possible moment? If I have to wait for a week to talk to someone for 5 minutes, really, and if I could do that today, then I could accelerate a deal with a customer, accelerate revenue. I could speed up the execution of a project. I could be more responsive to a customer request. And so that's where we're coming from.
Right. I remember when I was doing IT support, and it's a similar thing. Like you have a team of technicians, and then you have a team of people using whatever it is, and then lots of issues come up, and you have to fix them, right? And then I realized a pattern, that we will prioritize who scream the most. That's how I kind of, the loudest, because we could have a ticketing system, right? But then the most sometimes obnoxious, sometimes it was they would just show up at our at our space, right? A user would show up at our space saying, "I have this issue," right? And then we will prioritize that person because it's the most obnoxious. Is not the right word, but that it would stand out of the noise, right?
Right.
And then and you have them there, you cannot say no, right? So there was social pressure, there was so many things, and then adding that you have a junior, inexperienced, socially green engineer, right? And then we will prioritize who was the most noisy, right? Who was the most, obnoxious, I guess, right?
The most
So
pissed off one.
yes. Well, we had that as well, right?
Well,
yeah.
the
But usually
angriest.
it was somebody that would come up with something that was very simple, but, low priority, but still, they will push through everything and we'll give priority to that, right? So I understand what you're saying, that if you have a lot of people coming up to you, right, it's really hard to prioritize in the right way, right? And if you optimize on having a book calendar, a fully booked calendar, then you don't have enough time to actually follow up and prioritize correctly, right?
Right. Absolutely. Plus, think about the slot itself. How many times you are in a meeting and it could have taken 10 minutes. It takes 15 minutes, really, but your slot is still full. You still have 15 minutes left. You could be available to talk to someone and avoid the future meeting that way. Or you could make a decision faster, but you don't know if somebody is available or somebody else's meeting ended earlier. Or, you don't know the real people availability. I see Microsoft Teams reads my calendar and shows me red, but I'm online on WhatsApp, and
Right.
I have a different status on Zoom. And what is the right status? And it's not consistent across. And really, especially after the pandemic, what happened is we decided that creating meetings, scheduling meetings, it's really the safest bet. And I'm scheduling a meeting, and then I hope you show up. 40 to 70% of the meetings get rescheduled. And then it lasts 30 minutes. At the end of those 30 minutes, you haven't done talking, and now you have to schedule a follow-up maybe 2 weeks later and to finish that conversation. And now half of the future slot is to remember what you discussed 2 weeks before and then move a little bit forward. Now, all of that doesn't make sense. There must be a better way to collaborate, and that's what we've built.
Right.
And we've been lucky that also Gartner found out that what we're doing, and they decided that we are a cool vendor, and they named us cool vendor in 2024 because of this innovative approach that kind of challenges the calendar paradigm. But the IT, just to tie back to your IT service management triage use case, that's also a very, a classic use case where speed of interaction, especially internally, may make or break customer satisfaction. A customer comes with a problem. Right. Now you, as an IT service manager or contact center agent or whatever, you have to go back and talk to 4 or 5 engineers trying to figure out what the problem is for that customer and going back to the customer. If you're able to talk for 5 minutes to all the engineers today and reply by this evening, it's really good. If it takes a week and 5 meetings to talk to 5 engineers and get back to your customers, then it looks bad. And so we said we designed a solution to accelerate the conversations in these scenarios.
Interesting. I was going to ask you about Gartner calling you guys cool vendor.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and why is that such a big deal?
Well, it's such a big deal because, there are really 3 companies in the world in 2024 that became cool vendors in digital workplace applications. And we've been absolutely blessed and lucky to become one. If you think about our history, we are a startup of ex-Cisco WebEx leaders. We invested our own money, haven't raised any external money until our solution was complete, and we were named already Gartner Cool Vendor. So basically, we are a startup that from scratch, without external funding, became Gartner Cool Vendor. And the reasons, for me, I can't speak for Gartner, but the way I see it is everybody else is investing in the current box, collaboration box. You have a calendar, is a base for your productivity. You have the usual tool. You're applying AI to what you already have. Let me give you an example. For example, you have multiple meetings right now. You have 3 meetings at the same time. Which one do you go to? Well, you go to the most important for you. But the most important for you might not be the most important for another person you're collaborating with who's really hoping that you would join their meeting. And this creates a lot of friction. The way they are resolving they're investing a lot of money today is creating an AI that attends the other meetings for you, summarizes it. If there's an action item to you, it assigns it to you. And, basically you send your agent into that meeting that figure things out for you. The problem is, if you're a key person, you're already back to back all day. You don't have time to go and read the summary of those meetings. So people are not really doing it.
Right.
And
So
then
so
if
you have
somebody
the
assigns,
you have the false
yeah,
sensation of attending a meeting, but if you don't even have time to read the summary, what's the point, right?
right. And if they assign you an action items in absentia when you're not there, will you work on it? You don't have
Right.
enough context. You don't really know. You start accumulating requests anyway, and you don't. So it's really tough. The way we've solved that, we said, look, do not apply AI to handle multiple meetings. Just apply AI to avoid multiple meetings. So
Right.
we said, uh, if I today I open Outlook. The standard is I open Outlook and schedule a meeting with someone I want to talk to. With our solution to Twillin, you just make a wish to talk to the person. Un deseo, if we want to talk Latino a little bit, speak Spanish. You make a wish. You say, I want to talk to Federico as soon as possible for 10 minutes about this topic. And you receive a notification. It tells you, hey, Dario wants to talk to you. Expect a call. Then we look at a few telemetry data points securely from all our devices, phones and laptops. And it turns out that the telemetry of your operating system is a good proxy of your real availability across all your devices, across all the apps. Because if I'm using the microphone on a phone, that's a hard no, I'm not available. I'm already talking to someone. So we look at those things which are absolutely agnostic to the application that you're using. And then we cross that data with your calendar availability. Are you busy or free right now on your calendar? And we are able to do all sorts of things. For example, you may be busy on a certain slot, but we see that through the telemetry that comes from your devices that a meeting ended earlier, and now there's enough time before the next meeting, and you want to talk to Dario for 5 minutes. Now Dario is meeting a customer and his phone is silent in his pocket, but he's just about to board a plane, so he turns on he's got a few minutes, so he turns on the screen of the phone and starts catching up on the notification. So even if the phone is silent, his attention is on that phone, which is unlocked, so he's reachable from a notification. And now we can say, hey, Federico, call Dario right now on Microsoft Teams or make a phone call on this phone number. So we go and carve out every possible moments. And that works very well, by the way. So people don't have to schedule meetings to talk to other people, but they do it.
Oh.
That's fine. Okay. Now, I had to explain you how it works so you and the readers, maybe I did it too late already, 20 minutes in the podcast or so, but this is what really differentiates us. So going back to Gartner, well, it's the approach, which is new, I believe, and also the telemetry, applying AI to telemetry, which is something that nobody has done in the context of enterprise collaboration. And say, we look at what's going on your devices and we infer your real availability instantaneously across all your apps. It doesn't matter whether you're busy on Teams or green on Zoom. We know if you're really available because we look at the operating system.
Very interesting. You're acting like a catalyst. You're making the meeting happen without participating in it.
Yes, absolutely. And we are absolutely. We don't participate. We don't want to participate. But there's plenty of AI that helps you in the meeting. Well, that's not our business.
Yes.
Our business is getting people in live conversations effortlessly at the right time without coordination whatsoever.
Right.
What happens in the meeting, that's for other awesome AI companies that do summarization, speaker diarization, attribution, action item extraction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, yes, and that's the that's why I'm thinking about the catalyst, because the catalyst speed up a chemical reaction or make it happen sometimes, right? Yeah, and then the other thing, like I'm what you were talking and describing, what Twilling is doing. I was also thinking about there's this story where the founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, he designed the loop, so the serendip to increase serendipity, right? Um, and then when he bought, I think it was DreamWorks. I don't remember the studio that he bought, right? After he
Pixar.
left up Pixar. Thank you. Yeah,
Pixar.
I was mixing it up. So when he bought Pixar, it turns out that you had teams working on different buildings, and he basically moved them all together into a single building, right? And that increased serendipity, that increased collaboration, that increased the quality of the products that they started to build up, right? And then the third one that I while you were talking about, I was thinking about. So I went to visit the Walt Disney Museum. It's in near the Bay Bridge, near the Golden Gate Bridge, right? Um, and basically they they go through the history of the family of Disney and how he built, the company, and how he innovated, right? And it was a very quick innovation process, right? Um, going from, and I apologize, I'm kind of going sideways, but going from static pictures to motion pictures to then cinematography movies, right? With animation, right? Anyway, they had this studio where they had a small team working together, and they were working as a family, right? And they would live nearby, and they would spend a lot of time together there. And the notes there they would say that it was like a family, right? Hanging out together all the time, and that increased serendipity, and that increased collaboration, right? So anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because you're doing exactly the same thing, but on the virtual world, right? And that's a very unique challenge that until now nobody has been able to fix. So that's very interesting.
Thank you. No, I think you centered that. You hit the nail in the head. It's what you said. It's very pertinent. In fact, we even call our solution digital serendipity.
Oh,
And
interesting. Right.
right, and the whole idea is it's really stemmed also from the COVID times, where once upon a time you could go to the coffee machine and have all the cross-pollination talks you wanted with everybody else in your organization. Now that doesn't exist anymore. Now you are home. You are only collaborating with the people you're supposed to collaborate. It's really hard to have serendipitous conversations outside your direct collaborators. And so we want to also bridge that gap. We want to make up for some of the water cooler conversations that you lost through the pandemic, and the fact that people, even with mandate to return to office, today are not really going. Or if they go, they spend time in virtual meetings anyway. So why do we even bother going to the office? We could do that from home and save gas and be more productive because of we avoid commute. But that of course affects the ability to get used to the other folks, to more people in your organization, and create ties with the organization. There are certain use cases that we are able to support that are very interesting for HR, for example. Imagine in
Right.
your company you're hiring a new hire, and now this new hire has you assign a mentor to this new hire, a busy, mature engineer to teach to the younger engineer. And now the younger engineer works from home, and he has to collaborate and talk to the very busy older engineer. And you send messages, that person responds you maybe at the end of the day or when he can, or you missed calls, not even, you don't even bother calling. Calling has 12% success rate at most. And so what can you really do to get up to speed and learn about the organization if you're a new hire? So one of the use cases is, hey, I need to talk to the subject matter expert, this older guy. I just make a wish, hey, I want to talk to you 5 minutes. And then he tells me, hey, get connected now. And that's earlier than the slot in common you find on your calendar, maybe 10 days from today. It's earlier. So we're accelerating conversation. And so you bring people up to speed faster. Same applies to, sales or projects. You're able to speed up projects more. You're able to be
Right.
more responsive to customers. Customer asks you for a quote. Now you're an account manager. You're selling something really complex, a complex project to a large customer. And now before answering, responding to that request for a quote, you have to go and talk to 7 people in your organization. Those are 7 30 minutes meetings over 2 weeks. And you lose momentum with your customer. Imagine you could just go back and in 2 3 days you talk to all of them. Now you've shortened the time to respond to customers by 5 times, and your customer, and you close deal faster. You close the deals faster. So there's a tangible value in doing all of that. And so serendipity.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, what I've been doing for the last 10 years is software development, staff augmentation, nearshore teams, building teams in Mexico for companies in the US. And one of the things that I encouraged before COVID was to spend time on site with the team in the US, so that we could generate that serendipity, right?
Right.
Because it's different when you have a face, an avatar, a photo, whatever, online, right? An email address versus, we play mini golf together, and I won, or the product owner won, whoever, right? But we had a great time together. Now it becomes a much more enriched relationship and a much more enriched collaboration, right? And I saw that happen, and it's what you're talking about. We would generate those moments where we would just hang out, or we would just work together on site, right? And talk about personal life, but also work, but also how can we do better, right? And we got to a point where people would say, "Oh, you didn't let me know that you were going to come, because I wanted to take you to this restaurant, or I wanted to plan this and that," right? And it was very interesting, right? We had a lot of fun, but also it was great for the collaboration of the team, right? And it was that serendipity that you're talking about, right?
It's about establishing trust. How
Yes.
can you establish trust with your coworkers? And when you meet in person or you have interactions frequently, and you accelerate the building of trust in the sense that, I become more predictable. It's a usual thing. I go bike riding every day when I'm in the US. Now, right now, I'm in Europe, as you know, for a period of time. But when
Right.
I'm home in the US, I have do bike rides every day, and every day I see the same people doing the same routines, and you do it 10 times, and then they start waving their hands and say hello, and then one day you stop and talk to them, and now you can talk because they see you, because they saw you 5, 10 times, and they trust you. You're predictable. You're always there. They know that you're from their neighborhood. They know that they feel confident in being approached by you, and they're actually happy because now they're talking to someone that they're curious about because they see them every day. That It's a very interesting dynamic that it's really lost if you just work remotely and you interact. Your interact, well, it's not lost. It's very badly delayed. If every 2 weeks you talk to someone, you kind of almost start over every time. But if you're able to interact faster, 7 times in 10 days with quick conversations, and maybe 7 5 minutes conversations in 10 days rather than 7 30-minute meetings in 7 months, you're going to establish a better relationship. This is what I feel intuitively. No, and this is, by the way, gold for a company that wants to promote certain culture, that wants to spread, you know, the example of certain successful people. You want youngsters to be exposed to those people as much as possible, Federico. So you want those conversations to happen so they can learn from them. They can see what success means in that organization, and they can imitate them. And so all of that has to, in the post-COVID world, is really hard, and we're trying to facilitate that as
Right.
much as possible.
Very interesting. So I saw a product that would simulate an office, a layout of an office, and then you could see like the avatars going from, one place to another, right? So then you could see, you could nudge people and have little voice calls, which it was trying to solve the similar issue, a similar problem, right? But and I found refreshing compared to other solutions, right? Like kind of playing a game where you see the avatars around, right, and you can interact with them. But now that I'm learning more about what you're doing with Twilling, I think they missed the mark on the serendipity part, right? Because yes, you can see the map of the people, but what you're doing is proactively creating the serendipity, right? And this
Right.
this solution that I saw was still a passive serendipity, right?
So, it's a location. You go there and you're expecting to see people. You don't
Right.
see them in the physical office, but you can see them in the virtual office, and probably they're there also when they're sick, but they're an avatar. They're not.
Yes.
They're a little more than a chat.
Yeah, and the complexity of understanding when they could be available and when they could have, when they could be available for a quick talk, you don't know, right? So I would be afraid to ping somebody, because I could interrupt that person, right?
Yes, and look, I think you and I are. I don't know how old you are, but I'm approaching 46, and I'll tell you, when I was a kid, when I started working, everybody was just placing phone calls. Whenever you needed to talk to
Right.
someone, you just dialed the number. And if they weren't at their desk, okay, it's a missed call. But if they were at their desk, they would always pick up the phone and talk to you, especially older, more skilled workers. So whenever you needed somebody from a subject matter expert, just dial the number. Hey, I'm the kid. I'd like to know how to do this. Oh, yeah, I'll explain you. And you would drop everything, talking to someone, say, oh, hold on, they're calling me. And hey, and answer the phone call. Even with your cell phone. It was fancy to have the cell phone ringing, and then you just took that Nokia out of your pocket or that Motorola and say, oh, hold on,
The
one for a
the
second,
flip
somebody
flip
wants me.
phone, yeah.
The flip phone, somebody wants me. Now, that calling habit had a drawback, because if you're now focused and they're calling you, they distract you. It's an interruption, because it's not
Yes.
necessarily at the right moment. But you had that ringtone on or the vibration, and you were waiting for, and it was cool that, oh, somebody called me, that must be important. You had that.
Yes.
But if you're working on a team and somebody receives a call and takes it, now you're slowing down the team. It's an interruption. Then for some reason that I still can't figure out, especially in the US, we started pivoting towards, oh, let's raise the barriers. Maybe too many apps, maybe too many channels for communication, email, messages, apps, various apps, messages related to specific apps, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, whatever. There's too many notifications. So what you do is say, okay, in order to be productive, we have to isolate ourselves as much as possible. Raise the barriers and isolate ourselves. And we said the real productivity is your personal productivity. Now, before, we used to collaborate and do a team productivity with all those phone calls and those phone calls that were really going on among people. Now I don't want those phone calls anymore, because to be successful, I have to focus myself. But now we are missing that. It's so hard to talk to the other people that we're missing that collaboration, collective collaboration that happens maybe via messaging or via email, which is fine for certain things, but other things you have to talk. Other things require discussion. You can't send an email and then after 3 hours somebody answers, and then after 3 hours somebody else chimes in. It's too slow. For certain things, you have to go back to that conversation. But that conversation happens only if you open Outlook and try to coordinate 5 people's availability, and you end up scheduling 3 weeks for today, or start sending messages, hey, it's too late, 3 weeks. Can you find any availability that day? You start negotiating earlier slots. It's so much coordination cost for doing something that one day was very easy to do. And so we said, before, we collaborated fast among people through phone calls, and then we said, no, now we raise the barriers, we focus, and we don't collaborate outside. Now, with digital serendipity, we see that we're kind of bridging the gap, because I collaborate on the phone with the speed of a phone call, but that comes in the right moment when I'm not interrupting you. So it's kind of the best of both worlds that we're going after here, that we have implemented.
Right. So yes, I have a similar age. I'm 42 now, so I kind of live the similar things, right? I live the the flip phones and the non-smartphones, I guess, right? And what I've seen, in the last, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, when the smartphones became more of popular, right? Is that the level of notifications that we get increase and increase and increase. And now, what happens to me is that if I'm working on code, right, I need to focus, right? So I don't want to get interruptions. So I block as much as possible, right? And then what used to be a call, now people are used to send a message for it, right? Because it's like, if I call you, I'm interrupting whatever you're doing,
Yes.
and you have to stop everything just to pick up my call, right? Is this a real emergency? Like you need an answer right now. Now it moved towards that, right? Where it used to be socially acceptable to make a phone call, right now it becomes a text message, right, on an email, right? And people are overwhelmed with notifications and messages here and there, right? Which I agree with you, it became a bad practice, but because now we have so many messages and so many notifications that it becomes overwhelming, right? So yeah, I am agreeing with you, and I think that is becoming an issue. And the other issue that is happening with that is that the attention span for everybody is getting shorter and shorter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that
Absolutely.
becomes an issue. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and that's kind of one of the reasons I started doing podcasting, because, we can have this space to discuss much more complex and rich concepts than a quick conversation on,
A post of LinkedIn. Post on LinkedIn, which is
right.
right, and then a few people chime in with 100 characters, and that's it.
Yes,
You
yes.
can't
And
you can't
then
really go deep into
you cannot
a
go
subject.
deep into any concept. And if you do a post on LinkedIn, if you meet at a conference, right, there's so many people that I feel overwhelmed. Like I can meet like 10, 20 people in a single event, but then we never had it was like quick Q&As, and that's it, right? There's no more meaningful conversation, right?
Yeah,
So
podcasts are
oh, go ahead,
fun.
go ahead. Yes, I mean, this is so much fun. Yeah, I had really interesting conversations and very intriguing. The thing is, people have been changing my mind on topics, on things, right? Whereas on on a quick conversation, it's more of a information dump. It's like, here goes, blah 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 blah, and that's it, right?
Or
So yeah,
we agree on disagreeing,
yes, yes,
and we don't open up to each other's point of view much to enrich each other.
yes, yes, that's true.
Uh,
So one question I was going to ask you about Twilling is how does it work for smaller teams, right? Like I can see that you're probably working for corporations, bigger corporations. I'm wondering, you know, for smaller teams, what effect do you see? Have you seen happen?
yeah. So one statistic that is very important to understand the difference is in medium and large organizations, 7 meetings out of 8 are
Right.
internal on average. So the majority of the meetings and the interactions happen internally within the organization rather than towards external people. Now, when you start, shrinking the size of a company that uses Twillin, then the majority of the interactions start becoming start happening outside rather than inside. For those companies, we have developed certain capabilities that help smaller companies as well. Of course, if you want, you may say it's not our core business or the most impactful part of the story, which is saving a huge amount of money in terms of efficiencies for very large companies. But the small companies become much faster when coordinating with partners, other organizations they talk to, because Twilling works cross-organization as well. So I can make a wish to talk to somebody I know the email of, and that I know that person belongs to a company that uses Twilling, and now I'm able to, get in contact with that person serendipitously in another organization. Now, if we are in the same organization, Federico, you don't even have to accept. It's, hey, Twillin, tell me when I can talk to Federico about this. You receive a notification, hey, Dario wants to talk to you about this. Expect a call at the right moment. And then when the right moment comes, I just press a button and talk to you. And it's pretty accurate, about 99 times out of 10, people talk at the first attempt. It's just pretty impressive. You think about, 12% of a phone call.
Wow.
10% probability of a phone call. It's a huge leap forward.
You go from 12 to 90.
Yeah, 12 to 9, to 89.9 something. And at the first attempt. So people end up talking, but also, sometimes at the second or third attempt. But the first is 9 times out of 10, they talk immediately. So it's really amazing. And then across organizations is different. There's an acceptance step because you don't want to get a hold of somebody in another organization without that person agreeing on talking to you. So you say, you and I are into different companies, and I say, Federico, I want to talk to you. You say, hey, Dario wants to talk to you. Are you available today or not? And you can say, no, sorry, I'm busy, or yeah, okay, I'm available. If you say I'm available, then the telemetry starts flowing, Twillin finds the right moment, and you receive a card to join a meeting. So now it's a meeting link, and you both join a Microsoft Teams meeting, for example. And then, yeah, so it becomes a meeting across 2 different companies.
Interesting. So you can have both intra and outer across organization meetings.
Yeah. So for a smaller company, imagine you have a series of partners and you all get Twillin. Now you're able to quickly collaborate. If you have a cluster of companies working together, a district, now creating parts for a large auto manufacturer, and you have to coordinate the efforts across the smaller companies, each one doing a certain part. Just an example. Then you can all have Twillin and avoid scheduling 2 weeks from today, but say, I want to talk to this guy. And then a right moment happens, then everybody gets pulled into a meeting on the fly.
Right. I see. Interesting. And what is the next big milestone for Twilling? What are you planning to do in the next year?
I'm gonna have to tell you some roadmap stuff. Okay, there's some things that I can tell you. We're going to be integrating with Slack.
Oh, nice.
And bridge also companies that wouldn't talk to each other today. So across company today, finding a moment to talk, it's really hard. And if there are different companies on different platforms, it's even harder. If you have a Microsoft Teams company and a Slack and Google company, it's really, they don't have a lot of tools in common to organize a meeting. Maybe there's a booking solution that they can use, or not the polling, when are you guys available? But we can kind of bridge that gap. What we see is, I'm a Slack user, you are a Microsoft Teams user, we are in different organization. I make a wish through Slack to talk to you. You receive in Microsoft Teams the notification that says, hey, Dario wants to talk to you. Do you accept? Yes. And now at the right moment, we use my Zoom link to talk.
Oh,
so
I see.
Bridging different platforms and putting them together in a cohesive experience, which is a man-in-the-middle facilitation AI that does not exist today, and fills a very big gap, which is organizing meetings and interactions across organizations in a efficient way.
Very interesting. That'll be something unique. I don't think anybody's doing that yet.
Nope. Another thing, I give you another bit of interesting thing so we are not a large language model, obviously. We have our own proprietary AI that applies to the telemetry of your phone. and laptop and calendar availability. But we can, what we're going to exploring is, using large language models to understand the context of your projects, understand who has to talk to whom along the critical path of a certain project, and putting these people together serendipitously to speed up project execution and time to delivery.
Oh, so you would be able to proactively um, ask people, invite people to talk to each other before they even realize that they should talk to each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
Along the critical path of a certain project. The
Right.
LLMs can understand the context of your project and figure out a certain critical path. And now, so think about how you do projects today, especially in larger organization. Yeah, you have a calendar, you have tasks over time that are dictated by the calendar. One day you do this, one day you do that. People,
Right.
what they do this, and then they stop. They wait for the next day and they do that. And then they had to do another thing on the critical path, and they need somebody who's a subject matter expert divided across 5 different projects that decides to go on vacation. And now there's a discussion along the critical path of a project that is delayed by the 2 weeks of vacation of that person. And just simply projects are late by 40% across the board. But there's got to be a better way. If instead of having that, imagine you have a work breakdown that is not constrained on the calendar cadence, but you're able to accelerate that because you can have people interact faster and make decisions faster. Then you
The
have, for
value
the
for
first
that
time,
is amazing.
it's amazing. For the first time in history, you'll be able to compress the timeline of a project.
Right.
So we're going to explore that.
Wow. So I remember like when they built a new highway on or a new road on in a city, right? The number of you have all these crossings, and then the number of nodes grows exponentially, right? So that complexity makes that you make a bigger road, but then you have more traffic coming in, and then that makes the final impact is going to make that it's going to be slower than it was before, right? So it's counterintuitive. You're adding more bandwidth, if you like, but then you have more delays, right? So I feel that something similar happening with large organizations, right? Because you have such a large, uh, you know, group of people that have to interact with each other, right? Um, so what you're doing is optimizing that, right? You're being able
Right.
to take optimize that those interactions, reduce the time to market, and make the companies much more competitive, right?
Right. Look, it the more with size and more people in an organization, the coordination cost goes up.
Right.
It's, this goes up big time. In my startup, maybe I spend 15% of my time talking to people internally. At Cisco, I was talking to internal people 80% of the time of my day
Right.
because with the large number of people to make things happen, there's a huge the interactions needed to create consensus grow exponentially.
Yes.
And so if you are able to streamline those and reduce the impact reduce the timeline of all those interactions, you are delivering a tremendous amount of value.
Yes, I agree. Very interesting. I will review Twilling in more detail because I find it very fascinating. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want
So,
to try it, it's we offer really generous free trials.
oh, really? Nice. We'll put the
Yes,
links for the product at the notes of this episode,
Absolutely.
so people can reach out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we wrap it up.
Please.
What is the biggest change you've seen from going from corporate to working in a startup? What has been the biggest change you've seen or insights that you can share?
The biggest is quite. Let me try to elaborate that quickly. You know, being in medium, and large, and small companies, I've done them all. The difference between a small and a large company is the pace of learning, which is absolutely probably in 4 years doing Twillin, initially part-time and then the last couple of years full-time, I've learned more than the previous 16 years of collaboration AI product management. And I you learn at a so much faster pace. Anybody, because your span of control is not a slice of a large of a small slice of a large pie, but is a large slice of a smaller pie. And you see I wore so many hats and I saw so many dependencies between different functions, and I learned how to, do more with less, optimize resources, go faster. And so the biggest difference is the pace at which you can learn and grow. Another difference that is absolutely evident, but we already talked about it, is the lack of coordination cost. That that you don't have the huge coordination cost, so you don't have to align the stars. Well, especially in my position, being a co-founder, and I talk to people, I let them understand what we're doing. They get excited. We execute fast. There have been companies that it took 6 months of discussions with another team to add a link in the intranet of the company, change the link in the menu of the intranet. I said these are mind-blowing inefficiencies that you absolutely forget about. But the good news, I think, is I think that as an entrepreneur who is approaching a smaller startup, having seen larger companies and how not to manage them, it's really helpful in shaping the future of your startup or the growth, the mechanism, the organization. So I think it's really good that I've done all of them, all the sizes and kinds.
Yes, I think that there is, most of the processes that the big corporation built have a reason to be every single step, but then you can, summarize them and compress them and do it, yourself, or having one person on your team doing what it will be 4 or 5 people on a bigger company, right? And you can move so much faster. Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't have to ask permission to anyone, essentially.
Yes.
Especially, when you're a co-founder, you are free to express yourself, and which exposes you to, okay, I made a decision and I immediately know if it works or not. So I learn fast. I close the loop fast, and I move to the next.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting. So I appreciate Dario for being here. It's been very interesting to learn about what you're doing at Twilling, and I'm excited to see what you are going to come up next.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's been immense pleasure. All the best for your podcast, Federico. I hope you're going to grow your audience to the millions. And thanks everyone who has been listening to this episode.
Thank you.
Thanks.